Recorded. Yes, we know. Okay, tonight we are starting with bonds. Um, Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. Tonight we're going to be starting with bonds, and bonds is another vehicle of investment. Yesterday we look at segregated funds, we look at stocks, we look at annuities, and tonight we will be continuing with bonds. Now, in case you missed yesterday's class, I have uploaded and sent out the link to yesterday's class. So check your email and get to it, and so that it will help bring you up to speed regarding what we did yesterday and what we will be continuing tonight. So yes, bonds are also called a debt instrument. That's big grammar. Let me tell you, just breaking it down in a simple layman terms, bonds is IOU, like borrowing money, right? Like a debt between a borrower and the lender. That is bonds. That's the the financial way of saying borrow me money. You see, it's a refined way of borrowing money. That is bonds for you, okay? And then the one borrowing money is the bond issuer, and the lender, who is bond investor. The lender, that's you. You are the one. The person is parting with his or her money is the investor, is the lender. Okay. What am I saying? Is the bond issuer is the borrower, okay, and the lender, who is the bond investor, is the lender. All right. Bonds are also called a fixed income security. Many segregated funds focus on bonds or include bonds as part of their portfolio. Even segregated funds, like we learned yesterday, invest in different holdings. And one of the holdings that set funds can invest in is in bonds as well. So when we talk about bonds have different hierarchy of risk. Okay, some bonds are more riskier than another. Okay, bond is registered electronically when it's being purchased, and it consists of a face amount, which is the principal, and the coupon rate, which is the interest rate. So with bonds, the interest rate is referred to as the coupon rates. Okay. Now, bond is like IOU, which is what I talked about earlier, right? Bond is issued with maturity date as long as 30 years. All right. So you can buy a bond that you can hold for like 30 years. All right. And during this period, the corporations or the government compensate the investor for the use of their invested money by paying interest on the investor. For example, the government of Canada from time to time issue out bonds. So if I take my $10,000 and buy government of Canada bonds, it means that the government of Canada is owing me $10,000. Okay. And in compensating me, the government every month will be paying me interest on that bonds, on that money that they've borrowed from me. All right. However, my capital is still intact. So every month I get this coupon rate, which is what the rate that is being determined from the beginning. And if I fix that my if I lend the money to government for 30 years, so it means that in the next 30 years, the money will be with the government, and I'll be getting my coupon rate on a monthly basis. And at the end of that 30 years, I get my $10,000 back. Okay, so that is how bonds get had. Bond has maturity date, and it's the date when the bonds comes due for payment by the issuer and to the investors. And on that date, the borrower, who is the issuer, repays the full principal amount to the investor, which is just what I just explain. Okay. There are different advantages and disadvantages of bonds, just like we see for segregated funds. We see advantages and disadvantages of stocks. We also looked at advantages and disadvantages of annuities yesterday. Now let's look at advantages and disadvantages of bonds. Now, bonds provide an income streams via the interest payments, and they can also increase in value. Okay, the bond market is vast, right? Much larger than the stock market, and this gives investors a wide range of bonds to choose from. Okay, so like we have the stock market, so there are ways we source for bonds. Okay, and that market is vast, and it's even stated here that that market is even more vast than the stock market. Okay, and this gives investors a wide range of options to choose from, like which bonds do you want to put your money into. Like I said yesterday, if you invest your money with the government of Canada bond, that is less riskier than private corporations. Okay. Now, and to maintain investor confidence, repayment of the face amount and the interest payments are guaranteed for the government bonds. Okay, now the one issued by the government is guaranteed, right? But the corporate bond issuers makes commitment to repay their investors for the same reasons, and they need for the same reasons. Yeah, and they need investors' confidence, so they will be successful when they need to borrow more money from the public. You see, all this is just how do I put it? Um, um, is it is it good faith, or every company wants to have a good standing with the public, right? So they wouldn't want to lose the public confidence, because any company that fails to pay, for to their investors, then subsequently when they come to the market to issue our bonds, nobody will even want to touch it with the longest pole. So that's why corporations, always stand by their promises to make good their promises when it comes to issuing bonds and payment of their payments to their investors. Okay. Um, Okay, so we talked about that. Corporate bonds runs the spectrum of risk, and investors who are prepared to take a higher risk are rewarded with a high interest payment from the bond. Now, just like every other investment, corporate bonds have their own risks too. Like I said yesterday, and I also said this earlier, that when it comes to the level of risk, the corporate bonds are more riskier than the government bonds. Okay. And even within the classes of government bonds, the federal government bond is more secure than the provincial government bonds, as well as the provincial government bonds is more secure than the
Couple.
uh, is it yeah, after province we go to city, right? Mm-hmm. um where and how to buy bonds. Where do we buy bonds? Bonds can be purchased from those with the proper registration for bonds. You see, bonds, the thing with bonds is that just like stocks, right? If I'm holding bonds, I can sell it, especially if the rate is high. I can sell it, right? So you can buy um uh bonds from directly from the corporations, or directly from the government, or from individuals who have the bonds registered to their names. Okay. Canadian government bonds are issued by the federal, provincial, and municipal governments, and are typically denominated in Canadian dollars. Okay. Of course, it should be. And then foreign bonds are issued by foreign countries in Canada in Canadian dollars. Okay. Um, let's look at the characteristics of Canadian government bonds. The characteristics of Canadian government bonds is that high credit ratings, of course. It's government of Canada now. So the credit ratings is very high. So people have more confidence in borrowing money or lending their money to the Canadian government, right? So it's issued in the name of the government of Canada and federal crown corporations. Terms from 1 year to 30 years and starts from $5,000. Fixed interest paid semi-annually. Okay, so now these are the characteristics of Canadian government bonds, right? You can lend your money to the government from 1 year to 30 years, but the minimum has to be $5,000. Okay. Uh, Provincial government bonds, the characteristics of provincial government bonds are is next to the Canadian government, is issued by the province, okay, and the guaranteed payment of principal plus interest at maturity. And of course, municipal characteristics is a small percentage of Canadian bond market, okay. Uh, the lowest credit ratings when it comes to the Canadian government. You know, you have the federal, the provincial, then the municipal, okay.
Municipal.
Yeah.
So what
And
are the
then,
differences
but
between?
as come again, please.
Yeah. So what's the difference between the of the federal government bonds and the provincial government bonds?
Basically, the difference is that the federal government has more capacity, more power, more muscle than the provincial government, of course. And then the ratings, like the confidence in federal government is higher than the confidence in provincial government, because provincial government can run out of money too, right?
Yes.
Same as, so those are the difference in the characteristics.
Okay. Just in case it comes out in the
So
exam.
move on to we move on to corporate bonds, okay? Characteristics of corporate bonds is that it's issued by the companies looking to expand their operations, okay? And risk is based on creditor worthiness of the corporations issuing the bond. All right. So the creditor worthiness, some companies are not worthy for you to give your money to them. And that's why it's important to do your due diligence when attempting to invest in bonds, especially when it comes to corporate
Corporate
bonds. Yes,
bonds.
exactly. Okay. We have foreign bonds as well, and they have their characteristics as well. Uh, Foreign bonds characteristics that government of other countries and multinational companies may also issue bonds, right? And their
Mm-hmm.
creditor worthiness is as a result of the political and economic stability of the issuer. So, for instance, Europe might like London, UK now, can come to Canada and issue some corporate bonds or some multinational companies. You know, when you talk about multinationals, I like to use GE a lot because GE is a multinational with presence in almost literally every countries on the face of the earth. So such a multinational company like GE can issue a corporate bonds in Canada, right? Because there are companies that have built their this thing over
Reputation.
time with an integrity. Mhm. Jeremy, your sister will not like it when you are playing with his laptop. Can you leave it alone, please? I told you all that. She still left the laptop there. Anyways. Okay, return and guarantees on bonds. Okay, let's look at that. What's the returns and guarantees on bonds? On bonds. Yesterday we talked about the returns and guarantees on annuities. We look at returns and guarantees on sec funds. We also look at returns and guarantees on stocks. You know, for annuities and sec funds, we learned that there's a guarantee by Azuri up to 85%, you know, of investment in segregated funds upon maturity, which is typically 10 years. How about bonds? What is the guarantees that is available to those that intend to invest in um, bonds here? Let's take a look at that. Before maturity, interest payments are made, to the by the bond agent, like before guarantees. For example, if you put your money for 10 years and the contract stated that you get your interest biannually, or you get it twice a year, so it means by June and December you get your interest rate. And usually, and the thing is that the thing with bonds is that the interests are paid usually twice a year. Okay.
Okay.
um I think I scroll myself back on. The interest rates are paid usually twice a year. Where am I? Okay. And then also, on maturity, the face amount of the bond is repaid back to the investor. Okay. All right. And with any outstanding interest or obligations. All right. And then maturity date, bonds are issued at a short term, 3 years or less maturity. Okay, medium term is usually 3 to 10 years maturity, and then long term are usually 10 years or more. Okay. Now, the longer the term, the higher the interest rate on the bond because of inflation, right? So if I'm holding 10,000 today and I want to put it into a bond, and I'm locking it there for 30 years, that bond better give me some substantial interest rate, because in 30 years time, my 10,000 will probably be worth 5,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the only compensation for the value, like we were talking yesterday about what is the future value, of this 5,000. You see that in 30 years, you can actually calculate your 30 years value of your 10,000, what it would what be worth, to give you an idea of the interest rate that really work very well. Okay.
Okay.
Um, the longer, that's why the longer the term, the higher the
The
interest
interest
rate
rate on the
on the
bond.
bond. Okay. Creditor quality is very important. Okay. What is the creditor quality? You see, like if I'm borrowing money from, if I come to you to borrow money from you, what is the first thing you ask? You want to ask about my ability to pay you back, right?
Yeah.
So that is what is called creditor quality. You see, bonds are rated based on the issuer's capacity to meet their financial obligations, whether the issuer is a government or corporations, it doesn't matter. There are some federal government bonds that cannot even compete. Federal government bond in some countries that cannot compete with the municipal issued bond in Canada because of how messed up those countries are. You agree with me, right? So
Sure.
that means that the fact that it's government issued bond, it doesn't really make it any this thing. Depends on the country and depends on the viability of the economy
Political and
of the
economic
country issued the
stability.
bond. So, yes, yes. So that's very important, especially when it comes to international bonds and all that stuff. And then when we look
Mm.
at the price of bonds are issued at, at their face value, called par value. So interest rate change will change the price of bonds, in the bond market. So what this is telling us is that, okay, so if I buy federal government bonds today, right? And my interest rate is 5%. Okay.
Mhm.
And if the interest rate goes up, let's say interest rate goes up to 6%, right? So it means that
Mhm.
people, if the interest rate in the open market is 6%, so people, there'll be a demand for my own existing rate, right? Because I got it when it was my, look at it like this, like buying a house. Okay. So if you buy your house when interest rate is, let's say interest rate was 1.5, you bought a house, right? And
Mhm.
now interest rate is high, prices of houses that were 450 before, now is 550, right? So people will be, instead of going to buy new one, people will be willing to buy the existing one in the market because they can get it cheaper than buying a new house, right? It's just like
Yeah.
we go on Facebook Marketplace now. Like maybe what you buy in store for $500, you can see it for 250 on Facebook Marketplace. So you go to the store, you buy brand new, you pay taxes. Then you go to marketplace, you buy it, it meets your needs, it's functional, and yet very cheaper that could fit your budget. That same way we have like secondary market. If I me using secondary market to explain this now, okay? Uh, then risk of investing in bonds. The major risk associated with investing in bond, you know, is credit, liquidity, and inflation. Credit, liquidity, and inflation.
Okay.
What is credit? What is the ability of the individual or the government or the corporations issuing the bonds to pay you your money back plus the promised interest rate? And then liquidity, what is the liquidity in the market and stuff like that? And of course inflation is the biggest this
Risk.
thing risk. Okay. All right, so
Mm.
investor protection. Does investor, how are investor protected? Because when we look at seg funds and we look at annuities, we learned that
Jury.
those investment vehicles are protected by Azuri. The one that doesn't have protection is stocks. There is no protection for stocks.
So,
All right. So, but when it comes to bond, is there any protection? Let's take a look. You see, a bond is a type of security. Therefore, investor protection against bankruptcy of an investment dealer is provided in the same way as it's for stocks and
mm,
other types of security through the Canadian Investor Protection Fund. So the CIFP, which is the CIFP protects accounts held by the members of the uh, up to a specific limit. And if the dealer become insolvent, then there is no protection against loss of value, just
mm,
like stock, right? So
yeah.
yes, if those stocks is protected by CIPA, but if the person owing you is becomes insolvent, what can you do? Nothing. Nothing you can do.
It's
So
gone.
now
It's
that
gone.
it's gone, now that the matter take end.
Oh, goodness and mercy.
Yes. Okay. So now we've looked at seg funds, we've looked at stocks, we look at annuities, and then we've looked at bonds. Okay. And let me just write it on this end so that we'll keep tab of what we are learning. We've looked at
Mhm.
segregated funds, we've looked at annuities, we've also looked at stocks. Now the next one. So all these are types of savings, okay? Or types
Okay.
of investment,
Investment.
types of investment options. Okay.
Okay.
And then we just finished the fourth one, which is bonds. So we're moving on to the next one now is the savings.
Um,
Okay. Now, savings account, not just savings, it's called savings accounts. Okay. Let
okay.
me have a drink of water real quick. Kendrick, Dano, oh, Jewel, can you plug my light for me, please, and take this book? Now leave that, please. Kendrick, leave. Okay. Okay, savings account. Yes, a savings account is an account at a financial institution that accepts deposit and pays interest.
Okay.
This is not a good place to put your money at all. I tell people, don't do this. Don't do this. Okay, because savings account, they
It's
say
like
in savings account you get interest, but the
it's a
interest is
very low.
ridiculous. Ah, Ridiculous. Anyways, that's savings account for you. But however, on the other side, there are some people that it gives them peace of mind. Okay, at least they know that their money is not losing, right? So I believe that's why it's part of it's part of what the materials here, because yes, it doesn't, it's used little to nothing, but at the same time there are some people that their focus is for their money not to deplete at all. Okay, so such individuals, savings account might be for them. So what are the advantages of savings account? Now we all have savings account, right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
maybe so just look at it like your savings account. Don't need to overthink this thing. And my goal here is to demystify some of these things, because when you hear seg funds, just like I'm sure before yesterday, many of you, when you look here, future value, present value, and those formulas, you feel like it's such a big deal. But by the time we broke it down yesterday, broke those formulas down, I bet you, I don't think you have any difficulty trashing any questions that come in that direction. See? So in the same way, try to bring this thing close, because this is about fund. This is about investment. We do this every day, right? We do this in our lives, right? So
Yeah.
we open RESP for your children. You open, even before checking account. Most times, as you open checking account, your savings account is attached to it. Or from time to time, the banks will do a promotion. You'll see RBC, they'll say, okay, if you put in money, if you save money between the first of this month to the end of this month, RBC does that a lot. They'll give you Apple Watch, they'll give you iPad, all that. At the end of the day, open the account, they'll tell you you must have certain pre-authorized debit going through the account. So
Different stuff.
it's, you know, so this is that savings account. It's not a big deal. We all have savings account. We all open it for our kids. So when you look at the savings account that you have, what are the advantages? Savings account offer convenience, and liquidity, unlike other types of account. It's very easy to manage. The money is there at any time. You just move money from it. It's easy. It's just simple this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Savers may find the interest rate on their savings account is less than the rate of inflation, of course. I don't know why they put this one as okay. They say advantages of and disadvantages. Okay. Yes, the interest rate, of course, is lower than inflation. So that one, that one is a known fact, right?
So
Uh-huh.
it's not
Then
about
the
inflation.
interest earned in a savings account is taxed at the highest rate charged to investment. Even this interest rate that is not even, and many people don't even know they are paying tax on all those statutory money. Oh.
Hmm.
They go still come collect tax on top of it. Anyway, Sir Kenny, good evening. Welcome to join us. So that is a thing, right? All right. So that is the advantage and disadvantage of savings account. And then let's move on to types of saving. There's traditional savings account that offer low interest rates, right? And then there's high interest savings account that offer high interest rates. Depends on your contributions. All right. So let's look at returns and guarantees of savings account. Is there any returns and guarantees on savings account? Let us
Hmm.
see. Okay, returns on savings accounts are in the form of interest rate, which is paid to the account balance. Guarantee on savings accounts are largely backed by the size or strength of the financial solution providing. Well, this is just a glorified statement, because literally there's no guarantee, right? Because if there's any guarantee, there's no way they won't say, okay, like seg funds and and annuities that are backed by Azuris. Azuri is there, and they tell us Azuri backed it up to 85%, right? So when they are telling you, depends on the capacity of the financial institution. So it means that it's you by yourself will use your tongue to count your teeth.
I
Anyways,
know.
yeah. So that's that on that one. Returns on savings account. We already talked about that. Very, very low. And the major risk facing savings account is inflation risk. Okay. All right.
All right.
Uh, Investor protection
Sorry, good
provided by
evening.
Canada
Did you say
Deposit Insurance.
financial risk? Did you say the risk
Sorry?
facing saving account is financial risk?
Inflation,
Inflation.
Inflation risk.
inflation risk.
Okay, okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Inflation risk is what is facing savings account. All right. Investor protection is provided by Canada Deposit Insurance Corporations. Okay, and is to each member for up to 100,000 per account. All right, we are moving on to number 6, which is guaranteed investment
GIC
certificate,
certificate.
GIC. GIC. Okay, what's GIC? Open floor. You guys talk to me. What's GIC?
Should I say it's like an investment, as in like an interest, and the interest and the capital is paid
Mm-hmm.
to the investors after a term of
Yeah.
maturity.
Uh, that's correct. Yeah, GIC is a form of deposit to a financial institution in which there is a term to maturity before principal and interest will be paid to the investor. You see, unlike bonds, you get your interest, bi-annually, and then upon maturity, you get your capital back.
Capital.
But GIC, if you take GIC for 6 months, then at the end of that 6 months, you get both your capital and your interest back. Okay, so that's the difference. What's the advantages of GIC? Um, let's see. Guarantees returns on principal, of course, based on the promise. Is variety of products available to give investors choices. You see, available for little as $500. Is convenient and it's easy to understand. It's easy, like it's not complicated at all. Okay. What are the disadvantages? Is low rate of returns, right? The return paid as interest or income tax accordingly. Oh, is your the returns you get is equally taxed accordingly, right? And then there are and early withdrawals. Let's say something happens and you are not able to wait to the end of the maturity and you have to liquidate your GIC sooner, then you get penalized heavily. Okay. Um, where and how do you buy GIC? GIC are available through the financial institutions, including the banks, the trust companies, credit unions, insurance company, investment dealers, and special GIC deposit brokers. Okay. Uh, what are the types of GIC? We have fixed interest GIC. Okay. Uh, Cashable or redeemable GIC. All right. The fixed interest GIC is the one that, okay, will tell you, okay, this is the interest rate. Everything is known from the beginning. And let's say, okay, I bring my 5,000 to Mr. A, and Mr. A say, okay, for 6 months, you buy my GIC for 6 months and I'll give you 5%. So I know that in 6 months, my money is going to be 5,000 plus 5% of 5,000. So there is a peace of mind that comes with knowing what you are up against, what you'll be getting, right? However, there is cashable or redeemable GIC that allows the money deposited into the GIC to be received at a date earlier than maturity date. So interest rate is lower than when investor is locked in. So this one again is the flexible version of the guaranteed one, right? So this one allows you to be able to cash your money sooner if need be. But again, for that options, you are paying a price for it, because with the fact that this product have that option, the interest rate on it is not as much as the one that is locked in. If that makes sense, right? All right. Let's move on to returns and guarantees on GIC. Well, principal and interest are guaranteed to be paid at maturity, and the returns is in the form of interest. Okay. What are the potential risk of investing in GIC? GIC investor faces interest risk, inflation risk, which are discussed later in this module. Okay. Does GIC have protection, investor protection? Let's see. Um, Investors are protected by Canada Deposit Insurance Corporation, CDIC, but only if the deposit is in Canadian dollars. Okay. The principal deposit is not greater than 100,000, and up to 100,000 coverage is provided, for GIC. All right, that is on that one. We move on to number 7, which is mutual funds. Mutual. Okay. All right, mutual funds are created into funds, and open-end funds, which is issued in units to investors, in proportion to the amount they have invested. Okay. Um, a closed-end fund has a fixed number of shares, which is issued to its investors. Closed-end funds are not described in this module. Okay. Now don't hear them. Closed-end fund is not described in this module, meaning that it's not going to come in the exam then. So let's focus on which one again are we focusing on? All right. So mutual funds investors do not commit to term for their investment. They may redeem their investment at any time and receive proceeds shortly after that. Okay. Investors in a mutual funds
Mr.
pay
Joy.
3 types of fees.
Hello, Mr. Joy.
Yes, darling.
Yeah, you said
Yes.
closed end fund as in is not described in this one. What about the open end mutual fund? I think we skip it.
That's the one we are talking now. No, I'm already talking about open end. That's the one I just talked about it now, that you can cash your money at any time.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
they are redeemed. The investment can be redeemed at any time together with your proceeds.
Okay.
Okay. And investors in mutual funds, they pay 3 kinds of fees. They pay MER, which is management expense ratio, which is expressed as a percentage of the fund or the assets. You see, they also pay trading expense ratio, okay, which is measured in the trading cost. And the third one is TER. Okay. So which is a TER is evidence of more frequent buying and selling of holdings by the portfolio manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for
So the
reminding me.
mutual fund is the fact that you can take out your money at any time. All right.
Yeah.
And then they went ahead to discuss about the 3 kinds of fees that investors in mutual funds
Hello,
pays.
Sister Joy.
Well, I'm not going to dwell on this. Yes, my sis.
Yeah. Can we are we able to sell mutual funds with this certificate?
With our license, no.
License, yes.
No. No.
So why are they teaching it? Why is it part of the course? Yes.
It's investment now.
It's part of the Well, we just need to have the knowledge,
Segregated.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, well, because
Anyways,
it's not produced by insurance companies, right?
yes,
Mm.
it's by the bank.
Yes.
So that
So
one you
what's
need.
the difference between segregated fund and mutual funds?
So that's what we just talked now. So we were in class yesterday. So tell us.
Mm.
Ah, yes. Come, miss, give me chocolate for me, please. You won't let me
So
rest.
the major difference is the fact that segregated funds invest in multiple holdings. Okay, but mutual funds is sold by the banks. So the banks could have their own mutual funds, and then their mutual funds doesn't have as much diversity as segregated funds. And like we just saw now, there are two types of mutual funds, but we are not focusing on the closed one. The open one is the fact that the major difference is the fact that with mutual funds, you can put your money and take your money out at any time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But
All right.
segregated
So
funds, you
advantages
can't do
and
that.
disadvantages.
You can't do
No,
that.
so with segregated funds, it depends on how your fund is set up. Okay.
Okay.
If you put your seg funds to 3 years and above, then you won't be able to take it before the 3 years. And that's why we ask people, what is your investment time horizon? We need to establish that before we invest for people.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Got you.
Mm-hmm. Um, what advantages what advantages are specific to mutual funds and not shared with segregated funds? Okay, the primary advantage of mutual funds compared to segregated funds, Kenny, here is your what you're living, is the lack of 10-year term to maturity. This means an investor can easily enter and exit investment without any penalty other than what must be paid as a sales charge. You see, so that's mutual funds for you. There is no maturity period. You can enter and you look and you see that this is not what I wanted to. You bail out. Okay, you can't do that with seg funds. The mutual funds also permit their investor to withdraw money regularly, and this can create an income streams for the investor who can set up a systematic withdrawal plan. Okay. Mutual funds are also offered in a retail environment, such as banks, Caisse Populaires, and I'm sure these Caisse Populaires are all those Quebec people, and credit unions, okay, which is an evidence factor not available in segregated funds. Okay. And then some of the disadvantages of which investors should be aware of is that mutual funds are not intended to be a short-term investment. Tax complexities arises in a non-registered account, and that requires investment to be monitored and fund adequately. So let's move on to uh, where I have to buy mutual funds. We talked about it now. Mutual funds can be bought in the bank and all that stuff. And then types of mutual funds, we have cash, including funds in the money market. We have fixed income. We have equity, and we have commodity. Okay. Returns and guarantees on mutual funds. Mutual funds returns are not guaranteed. Hey, Egbe. Okay, now. Mutual funds returns are not guaranteed. Okay. The returns is determined based on net asset value of the funds. Wow. Then NAV is what determines the returns. Okay. All right. What are the risks associated with investing in mutual funds? It doesn't, without guarantees, investor risks total loss of their investment. This is a typical case of on your own. Oh my God. Cash based funds face interest rates and inflation risk, of course. Equity based funds. You see, the thing is that mutual funds, you see, there's also to invest in all these things cash, equity, fixed income. Okay. So, cash based fund also face inflation risk and interest rate risk. Equity based funds, which is the funds that invest in stocks, those ones see face market risk and industry risk. Fixed income uh, based fund face interest rate risk, right? So fixed income, we're looking at the kind of ones that invest in bonds, right? Currency risk can be experienced by funds in which there is foreign investments. Bam, bam, bam. Investor protection. Is there any investor protection? Well, like stock, there is no protection against market losses in mutual funds. Some. Okay, we're moving on. We move. Number 8 is exchange traded funds. Exchange traded funds. Oh, hey, who wants to tell us? Zaken, you want to tell us about exchange traded funds?
ETF.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I know it's
No, no, no,
almost
no, no.
like
Stocks, right?
yes, it's stocks. It's stocks. I've forgotten it actually.
Well, it's on the screen here. You see, exchange
Mm.
traded funds are a type of pooled investment funds in which investors receive shares, you know, in the type of funds in which they invest in. So, ETFs is just like you are not just randomly going to buy like if you're buying stocks, right? I can go buy Tesla today, I can buy Amazon, blah blah blah. But ETFs, let's say, okay, um exchange traded funds, let's say, okay, I want to raise money for my daycare. Okay, so Star Kenny, you and Mabel comes and say, okay, oh Joy, how much are you looking for? I say, okay, I'm looking for $5 million. Okay, Star Kenny, you wrote a check of 2.5 for me. Kenny wrote check of 2.5 for me. I say, okay, for your investment, I'm going to give you 10% equity in my company. And I give you a shares that is worth that 10% to each of you. So that's basically exchange traded funds. Make sense? And that's what they are trying to explain to us. They say that exchange traded funds are a type of pooled investment funds in which investors receive shares in the type of funds in which they invest. Okay, makes sense. Exchange traded funds trade the same way as shares on the stock exchange market, right? Exchange traded funds are available as an indexed fund, okay, or an actively managed fund. The index fund tracks an underlying index, right? And all this, their grammar. Anyways, what are the advantages of exchange traded funds? Ah, is diversifications, right? So you are able to diversify your portfolios into different exchange ETFs. Then it's easy to trade. Okay. Lower MER than other funds. Okay. All right. Um, then of course there are professional management that have oversight on that, and then exposed to commodity provided by small investors, then ability to react rapidly to the market development and speculations on a short-term basis, and then the ability to advance trading transactions, okay, such as limits, stop loss, and all that stuff. Okay, ETS have distinct disadvantages that include trading fees. such as commissions, are usually charged on a buy and sell basis. Hey, wow, you pay commissions when you buy, you pay commissions when you sell. And all those commissions, they basically adds up, right? They add up really, really fast. Low liquidity. Yes, I totally get this. Low liquidity for infrequent traded ETFs. Yeah, it's not liquid, low liquidity. Complexity of the investment, right? So you need with ETFs, you really need to know what you're doing. Okay. And the litmus test for investment suitability is the ability of the investor to describe how his money will be invested. Okay. So I think ETFs is good for people that have some existing knowledge on investing. Okay. Um, where and how do you buy ETFs? Well, the investor needs to have an account with the security dealer, and then ETFs and securities are sold by ETF facts, and this document contains all the information around the ETFs and stuff like that. Now, what are the types of ETFs? There are many types of ETFs that are available that track some currencies and industries. See, these types are could be for growth, okay, it could be for value of the ETFs or the market capitalizations and stuff like that. Okay, and another type of ETF is the index-based ETFs. So the index-based ETF tracks their target index in one or two ways, okay, to replicate the index-based, okay, or as a sample of the index-based. Okay, all these are technical jargons, on how um, um, ETFs are set up, that is their types or their characteristics. Now, what are the potentials of making money through ETFs? Well, we can make money through ETFs like also with, so they keep comparing it as stocks, right? Well, as with stocks, ETFs returns are not guaranteed, and returns are earned, you see, as a returns or dividends or capital gains. Okay, returns on ETFs can are earned as a returns, as interest, okay, on as interest, dividend, or capital gain. Okay, moving on to what's the next one? Uh ETFs equally has disadvantages of ETFs. Oh, the next, professional management, explore the community. Now, in terms of disadvantage, trading fees such as commissions or are usually charged on a buy-sell basis. We've talked about that one earlier. And low liquidity for frequently traded ETFs is not as liquid. The litmus for okay. Is it me that's making a mistake? Come back to the same page. Okay, it's me, man. So sorry. Okay. Uh investor protection. Okay, what kind of investor protection do we have when it comes to ETFs? Well, like stocks and mutual funds, there is no protection against the market losses. Okay, when it comes to ETFs, there is no protection. Okay, so it means that we have to, make up our mind to take whatever comes our way, you know, go going into uh ETFs. All right. So the ninth one is real estate. Real estate. Real estate. Okay. So what's real estate? Who's going to explain to us? What's real estate?
Real estate is
Just like rent and mortgage now. Having an
Sister
estate.
Kenny, rent an
Just
estate.
like having an estate or having a rent or a mortgage and someone is paying you rent every month
Okay.
or yearly. They are all real estate.
Okay. They are all real estate. Okay, good stuff. You are correct. Okay, you are very right. We see real estate is a form of investment, okay, that generates income through rent. All right. And the thing with real estate is that it is it is almost the very first form of investment that we experience. You understand me?
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that it's something we see our parents do. You get what I'm saying? Back
Mm,
home, parents owning a house and with tenant is so common. Sometimes those tenants may not pay, but you see the mindset, right?
yeah.
Even in the village, you know, they build the house, they live in there, and then they have the one tenants are there renting, you know. Now, what are the different types of investment options that we can do with real estate? Well, we can invest in residential properties such as condos, apartment buildings, single family house, multi-family homes, and all those yara yara yara, right? Or we can
Mm-hmm.
do commercial properties typically used for service business such as restaurant, daycare, street mall, and all those stuff. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
pharmacy, chiropractor, barber shop, pizza. Then the third form of investment we can do with real estate is industrial properties, which are typically industrial purposes such as manufacturing. Okay, and of course land. You can invest in land. Maybe you go to a far place now, there's
It's
no civilization there.
good.
You get the land close to nothing, right, for future development, and you hold it maybe the next 10 years. You are waiting for your millions. You waiting patiently, and then one day, boom. Anytime I drive around this area, I still see some houses that that these houses are sitting on millions. You understand? Because you see one house and surrounded by big acres of land. And I'm
Mm,
very sure that 10, 15 years ago, all those places were just typical bush, right? But now development have come. So that is investment in land for you. Okay. Return and guarantee on real estate. Well, there are no guarantee to real estate. Your real estate is your guarantee. Anyways, that's me saying that, please. Okay. There's no guarantee to real estate investors that rent will be paid, or property values will increase. Returns are in the form of rent taxed like interest. Okay. Okay. What are the risks associated in investing in real estate? Well, significant risk is the risk of liquidity. Okay, is the risk of liquidity and that's why we all carry mortgages, right? When you want to buy real estate, you always need money, and many a times you don't have the money, you know, it becomes difficult. Anyway, real estate that is mortgaged is also subject to interest rate risk, of course. Interest rate risk. Like interest rate some months ago was 1 point 1.6, 1.7, right? But now it's climbing again. So, and real estate that you have mortgage, you can't run away from interest rate. Okay. Investor protection, there's no investor protection. Okay. Um, Canada Premium Bonds, CPB, and Canada Savings Bond. Why are we talking about bonds here? I've talked about bonds. Uh, mhm. So, so that is that on real estate. We're moving on now to group plan. You see, all this are investment that we can do on our own as individuals. Okay, make sense?
Yes.
All this. And what are these investments? We've looked at sec funds, annuities, stocks, bonds, savings
Mm.
account, GIC, mutual funds, exchange traded funds, and real estate. All these are individual investment options. Let me put it individual investment options. I want to stand up a little bit. My feet is ah man. Uh-oh. Did I stop sharing? Okay, so we move on to group plans, right? So, and
Yes.
I told us that all these other investment options we've been looking at since yesterday, they are all individual investment options. So I'm
Mhm.
excited to look at the group investment options are like. Okay. Um. Now, group that offer savings and investment plans to their members includes employers, associations, and fraternity, like fraternity organizations. Okay, those are group plans, and I want you to look at it like, group benefits, right? So the same way there are group plans that offer investment options to their group members. Okay, and then what are the advantages when you belong to a group? Just like group life insurance or group benefits plans or stuff. One sec, please. Jua. Okay. Um, so again, like we have advantage and disadvantages of group plan. Okay. The members of the group plan can receive assistance and encouragement to join their plans in the case of employer and sponsor plan. So to receive employer contributions to their individual plan. Okay. He said he sent the guest instructions that you should call the guest. Sorry? That he sent the guest instructions that you should call the guest. Okay, 1 second, please. He got it.
So why is he sending a text?
He sent another text that he got it. Okay. Uh, so we're talking about the advantages and disadvantages of group savings benefit. Contributions made by employer to a deferred profit sharing plan are fully tax deductibles. Okay, this one you need to pay attention. Let me see if we have anyone from the previous one. Okay, so next one. So contributions, I'm going to take my time because these are exam related questions. So
Okay.
contributions made by employer to a deferred profit sharing plan are fully tax deductible to the employer and not subject to payroll taxes.
Mm.
Contributions made by an employer to a defined contribution pension plan or a defined benefit pension plans are fully tax deductible to the employer. Okay. Account fees are paid by the sponsor, in this case, the employer, to get better potential rates of returns that can be achieved in individual plans. Okay. All right. Now, to access to many, they have access to so many investment tools and opportunities. So these are advantages of a group investment now, right?
Investment. Yeah.
It provides access to potential access to so many investment options,
Mm-hmm.
get potential rates of returns, okay, that cannot be achieved in individual plans, okay. Um, However, the disadvantage of to a members can be restricted investment choices. So one of the disadvantages that as a member, if there's a particular investment that you are eyeing that you want to do by yourself, you cannot do that. You can only go with what
What
the whole
the
organizations
group
are
is
going with.
doing. Okay.
Exactly. The group plan administrator enjoys separate advantages, primarily a significant employee benefits, a significant employee benefit that can be used to attract talent to the company. Okay. Range of plans available tailored to the objectives of the financial capability of the employer. All right. Contribution made by employer to a deferred profit sharing plan are fully tax deductibles to the employer and are not subject to payroll taxes. Contributions contributions made by an employer to a defined contribution pension plan is a defined benefit pension plan are fully tax deductibles to the employer. Okay.
Mm.
And
So
also
what
the
is
ability to change the plan at will. Okay.
hello, sister Joy?
Yeah.
So what is different between the let me reduce the size so I can see. Oh, I want to see something very well. The DP
Mhm.
deep the define the
Okay.
DCPP and the
Benefit. Okay. So there's a DBPP and the defined benefit pension plan and
define
let me, I
pension.
want to say
Can you scroll up
DPSP,
a bit?
defined profit sharing plan. Defined
Okay.
profit sharing plan.
Can you scroll up a bit, Sister Joy? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, DPSP, right? So
Mm-hmm.
defined benefit pension plan. Okay, you see in pension plan there is defined benefit pension plan, and then there is defined um contribution made by employer to a there's defined profit sharing plan, and
Okay.
also there's also defined contribution pension plan. That is a defined
See.
contribution pension plan. That is DCPP.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
So defined benefit pension plan is a kind of pension plan whereby the retirement benefit, is defined. So this one is so beneficial um to the
The
employees.
employees.
Yes, not many organizations use this approach. I think the people that see, I know teachers are still using it. Okay, Canada Post, they are still using it. Whereby, right from when you join, depending on the number of years you have spent with the company,
Mm-hmm.
you already know. That's why it's called defined benefit.
Benefits.
Come rain, come shine, you will get that amount. Okay, and that's why you see some people, they enter one company, they are not going anywhere. Their eye
Mm.
is on that defined money they have promised them from the beginning. You see.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have defined contribution. That's what most organizations use, right? Defined
Mm-hmm.
contribution pension plan is that you contribute, me, I contribute. Some company will say, okay, if you contribute, we will match your contribution. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't contribute, you no go contribute. And then there is defined, what's this one
Pension
again? This one is
share
not as popular.
DPSP.
Deferred profit sharing plan. So this defined profit sharing is a very tricky one. This one is the one that, okay, the company will say, okay, when we make profit, then we share this profit and
Hmm.
put it in your retirement, in your benefit plan for you. So this one, our own. You don't know, you may not get anything.
Anything.
Yes, you understand.
Yes.
So those are
But
the
the defined
differences.
contribution is your own contribution towards the
Yeah, defined contribution is you will contribute some, employer will contribute some.
contribution percentage.
Mm.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
And the three of them now, they are all taxable to the employer, not the employee, not your what's it called again? Not the employee, the
Okay, so
employer.
yes, there
Your
are,
payroll taxes.
contributions made by employer to the deferred profit sharing plan are fully tax deductible to the employer.
Employer. Okay.
Is tax deductible to the employer and does not, is not subject to payroll taxes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's totally defined
where
benefit.
and how do you buy group plan? A group plan are marketed to sponsors by insurance agents based on their needs and their financial capacities. Okay, just like group insurance and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Okay, types of group plan. Okay, let's start looking at types of group plans now. Hey, this textbook is taking forever for us to finish. Hmm? Oh my goodness. Hopefully, I can do money much more tomorrow and Saturday. Um, Types of group plan. Well, details on this type is as follows in the next modules. Okay. Defined benefit pension plan is a type of group plan. You know,
Mm-hmm.
let me put it types. Let me write it in another page. I like writing even when I'm teaching too. Types of group plan. So we have um defined benefits,
Mm-hmm.
benefits, pension plan. Okay, then we have defined contribution. See, I told you now, defined
Mm-hmm.
contribution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so look at here. Defined benefit pension plan is a unique because it is the only plan that pays an income during retirement that is known, that is defined. You
Right.
see, just look at it's defined, right? It's known. It is the only benefit that tells you from when you join a company that okay, when you are retired, this is how much. You know, these people they will even go as far. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
when you retire, you'll be earning this amount on a monthly basis. So it's defined. So from the beginning,
Wow.
you know how much you'll be making,
Much
right?
making.
Then you now have defined contribution pension plan, also known as money purchase plan. The income paid during the retirement is known in advance because it is as a result of members' contribution and investment
Investment
choices.
choice.
Then there's group registered retirement savings plan, which is GI, group registered retirement savings plan. You see, that is, you know, RRSP is for individual, right?
Yeah.
Then group registered retirement savings plan is by group. So when you have
Mm-hmm.
RRSP at work, what you have is group registered retirement savings plan. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. So this one, each member's income at retirement will be based on contributions and investment. And then there is deferred profit sharing. Okay, which is deferred profit sharing. Should
Mm-hmm. Different.
DPSP.
Mm-hmm.
DPSP. You see the benefit of this class, all these things I'm explaining now. If you were to be reading the text on your own, it will be taking you a long time to try to figure out all these things, right?
Exactly.
So this deferred profit sharing is all about employers that is the profit of the employer are shared with employees to form plan contribution, and each member's income at retirement will be based on the contributions and investment choices.
Investment.
Okay, then there's tax-free savings account for group. There's group tax-free savings account, group TFSA. Okay, so this one is provide tax-free income. Each member's income at retirement will be based on contributions, tax-free. Then there's pool registered pension plan, which is PRPP. Okay, the pool registered pension plan is for small business and employees. For example, like for me now, my business, let's say my business is small, right? So I can't
Mm-hmm.
set up a full blown group plan for my staff. Let's say you own a company also, and maybe your employees are maybe like 3 or 4. You understand? Then same thing, Kenny have employee. So 3 of us can pool our um 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 uh, companies together to form a pooled retirement this which is called pooled
Plan.
registered pension plan. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
returns and guarantees on pension plan. Payment received from a group plans are taxed as interest income. So defined benefit pension plan, DBPP, offers a guaranteed income in retirement, okay? But only if the plan is fully funded. You see, in as much as this defined benefit pension plan is so nice, it's so good, it's so juicy, it's so attractive,
Some employer might
it's
not
not
fund
going to
it.
mean any. Yes, exactly, because you get what I'm saying, right? Ah, risk of
It's very
offering
well.
group plan. An employer commits to contribute to the plan and pays the cost of administration. Business conditions may worsen. So what are you going to do?
They
You
do.
know, for example, if any company that have group plan now with COVID that hit last week, I say last week, last year.
Yeah.
what are you going to do? Because you still be paying, right? Mhm. Those are the risks of
Mhm.
participating in group plan. So when a plan member or an employee is responsible for making his or her own investment decision at a WOOP defined contribution pension plan or group blah 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 blah, then the phases of investment risk such as interest rates or inflation or
Inflation.
market risk, everything the employee will take responsibility for that. But in
Mhm.
group plan, the employer takes a whole lot of this thing, right? And what are the plan members' protection? Well, provinces and territories administer pensions through their financial institution, commissions, or the government industry responsible for that pension and the benefits. Okay. Uh, there are the acts protect the rights and benefits of the plan, and some jurisdiction provide guarantees. You know, some jurisdictions provide guarantees, that's what they are telling us. But in
Mhm.
some jurisdictions, there is no provision of any guarantees. Okay. Risk of investing. Investing carries many, many risks. Okay. The individual has control over some risks and no control over others, right? So
Mhm.
then we also need to look
So
at
is it the
economy as a
pension
whole.
benefit guarantee fund?
Hmm?
The
But what they
protection
are
against
telling us, the protection, there's no protection, but province by province have their the acts that guides, and regulates the investment holdings of those pension plans. But there's
mhm,
nothing specific that guarantee up to specific amount like Azuri does up to 85%. There was no such, right?
okay.
Okay. So now all the risk associated to group plans are associated to group plans we have equity risk. Yeah, because anyone who invests in stocks, all right, or in
Mm-hmm.
the stock markets directly or indirectly go through equity funds or whatever, you know exposes yourself to the risk or that comes with it, the risk that is associated with investing in stocks, right?
Yeah.
And also inflation risk. Inflation risk is also known as purchasing power risk. So inflation risk that can eat deep into somebody's money. That is, you find out that your okay, can you allow me finish, please? Thank you. That due to inflation, your 10,000 might become $8,000, right?
Yeah.
So to calculate the real rate of returns on an investment, inflation have to be factored inside. All right. And how do you factor in inflation? So assume that the average rate of returns on a 1 year guaranteed investment certificate on sale today is 2.20%, right? And the
Yeah.
inflation rate for this year is 1.8. Therefore, if we assume the inflation rate will be the same for the next year, then the real rate of returns will be 0.4, because it will be this minus, it will be 2.20
Minus
minus
1.8.
1.8.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Then when we talk about interest rate risk, in an investment that pays interest, it is locked into a fixed interest rate, then an investor cannot take out a high interest rate if interest goes up. Okay, so when the investment is interest driven, and that interest is locked in. You understand? So you
Mm-hmm.
can't take advantage when the interest goes up because you're locked in.
Yeah,
Nothing
no.
you can do. Your hands and legs are tied, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then of course, market risk. You see, when it comes to market risk, market downtown, in the total financial market impacts everything. When market dips like this, the whole thing will go down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So liquidity risk, is a risk that an investment cannot be easily converted into cash, you see. And one of the major investment vehicles that suffers liquidity risk is investing in real estate. You can't easily sell your property that you have money in your bank account in the next 3 days. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Then foreign exchange risk is associated with investment that has to do with
Fluctuation.
other currency that can fluctuate, right?
Fluctuate.
And when the price of the currency changes, it affects the investment holdings in
Mm.
that portfolio. Okay. Of course, credit risk. Credit risk is also known as a default risk. This one is very common with bonds, right? Mm-hmm. Uh, this is a risk that a borrower will fail to pay or repay their loan. So when a borrower fail to or unable to meet their financial obligations, that's credit risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we have industry risk. The risk industry faces, various industry faces is different from one industry to the other. Okay, such as technology or mining, for example, the retail industry. Look at what Amazon is doing to the retail industry right now, right? Anything anybody wants to buy now, the first thing you think about is Amazon, you know. Now the retail industry with bricks and mortar stores are struggling. You know what I'm saying?
I'm getting you. And their
Okay,
price is
other
lifted.
investment risk are exactly. So other investment risks are many risks both generates and specifics are associated with investing, and to determine if this risk falls within investor risk characteristics.
Mm.
Okay. All right, so we move on to chapter 2. We'll be talking about segregated funds. Now, this what I noticed is that when we go through this chapter 2, we'll be seeing a lot of repeated information around what we have
Can
learned
we do it
already.
tomorrow?
Anyway, oh yes, we'll stop here tonight. All right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
We're
trying
going
to
to
look for
stop
the
here
right
tonight,
information
okay?
to read. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much.
So